Hello everyone, my name is Ali Alzagir and I will be doing my company analysis on a company that is actually very dear to our hearts in this day and age, and that is Pfizer Pharmaceutical. The reason why I chose my company analysis on Pfizer Pharmaceuticals is because I had a 9-month internship there during the pandemic, and it was a wonderful experience to see how Pfizer really does innovate daily to save lives. Just a little overview on Pfizer. Pfizer is one of the largest pharmaceutical companies in the world, with operations dating up to 173 years ago, first founded in 1849. It's actually funny that we mentioned they were founded in 1849 because when I started my internship at Pfizer, my manager had asked me in the first week to guess when Pfizer was first started, and I stupid me, I said 2010. Well, I'm sure many others haven't heard of Pfizer before the pandemic, and they might have said something similar to that. But that's actually a fun fact to know moving on. Lastly, I just wanted to point out that the market share is steadily increasing after the pandemic as the vaccines have given Pfizer a major boost in sales and brand awareness. Now, for the external analysis, I have chosen an article that discusses the Porter's five forces and how it impacts Pfizer today. The bottom line that I have given this article is a C because it did not go too much in depth over each force and did not give any suggestions on how to resolve any of the problems that were stated in the article. It did a great job covering the highlights of the five forces and selecting which ones were the stronger forces and the weaker forces than others, but improvements could definitely be made here. Moving on, we are at the summary statement of the article, and this was done poorly. The pros of the article, there is a statement, and the five forces were talked about. So the analysis did focus on measuring the company's position based on the threat of new entrants, the substitutes, bargaining power of buyers and suppliers, and the competitive rivalry. The cons of the article. It did not give a brief history of Pfizer, which would have been very beneficial for someone that does not know anything about them, and it does not include any graphs to back up the data. And they very quickly cover the five forces. So my analysis here, this industry that Pfizer is in, the pharmaceutical industry is very attractive. Success will require capitalizing on opportunities to be considered a part of the top pharmaceutical companies in the world. Pfizer operates in an oligopoly, and before the pandemic, there was too much rivalry causing their rankings to fall yearly, but credits to the coronavirus and their vaccines, Pfizer is now considered the top pharmaceutical company in the world. Um, the forces that have the most impact on the industry's rivalry. The pros of the article, each power section consists of a brief statement on how influential power is for Pfizer. They talk about which powers were strong and which powers were weak. The cons of the article, it overviews strong and weak, and it's very brief. The overviews of the strong and weak were very brief. So that could have definitely been improved. If I was writing this paper, I would have definitely tried to talk about each aspect of the forces and try to rank them from the best to worst and have a strong point and a weak point for each one of them. So the bargaining powers of suppliers is the strongest power for Pfizer. And the reason for that is there's high quality control required and there's low suppliers, and it's just leading to strong bargaining power against Pfizer. In the case of the pharmaceutical industry, the number of major players is more than the suppliers in this industry, and hence the suppliers enjoy a lot of bargaining powers as the raw materials in this case are quite rare in many cases. The fact that an elevated level of quality control is required, that basically means that there's going to be very few suppliers available in the market, and this gives the suppliers great power over Pfizer. The market of machinery required for the manufacturing processes are also extremely low, and the machinery required are also very expensive. That basically means all the suppliers are going to have a great deal of bargaining power now. Pfizer could start making its own raw materials in laboratories and making their own machines, which could eliminate the need for suppliers in the future. And that is one of my recommendations moving on for Pfizer. Each force's strength. The pros of the article: each force is classified as 1. Strength or a weakness. The cons of an article: it did not explain the strength and weaknesses for each force in detail. So this leads me to my analysis. If I was to write this article, I would have stated once again the strengths to weaknesses in order, and kind of showed them which ones were more important and which ones weren't too important for Pfizer. Now, the threat of, I kind of listed all 5 down below, and let's start with the first one. The threat of new entrants is a weak force, as Pfizer focuses on quality control to sustain credibility. And obviously anyone that's coming into the market and they are a new entry to the market, they have to establish credibility, and that just makes this force very weak for Pfizer. Now, the threat of substitutes, they are also a weak force, as Pfizer innovates new drugs very quickly, and that makes substitutes very weak. When I was working at Pfizer, I know that the scientists over there worked every single day, 7 days a week, coming up with innovative strategies and innovative ways to make drugs, and that would basically eliminate the need for substitutes because they're just getting basically upgraded every single month or 2 months or 3 months. The bargaining power of customers is also very weak, as medicine made by Pfizer are credible and reliable. So obviously if you're a patient at a hospital and a doctor comes up to you and tells you, I have to prescribe you a drug, and this drug is brand new, it's either going to be made by a very new company or Pfizer Pharmaceuticals, which has dated up to 170 years of quality-driven drugs. You'd want to go with the quality and the credible brand, and that is Pfizer. So customers, they're not going to have a lot of bargaining power, which makes that very weak force. Bargaining power of suppliers, we talked about that earlier. That's a very strong force, as the producers of machinery is very low and expensive, which makes it a strong bargaining power. And it's not just machinery, it's also raw materials, which we also came up with the recommendation of maybe Pfizer becoming its own supplier, which we'll talk about in a bit. Competitive rivalry is not very strong thanks to its research and development of many patented drugs. So, summary, visual, and recommendations to mitigate forces. The pros: it shows a photo of Pfizer, which technically leads me into my cons. There is no analytical graph or visual that helps mitigate the strong forces together. My analysis would in this case be, if I was writing this article, I would have a visual guiding the analysis of each force, and to mitigate the power of suppliers, in this case I would have a visual of Pfizer developing their own materials through laboratories for specific drugs and vaccines, along with developing machinery, and kind of comparing and contrasting those types of forces of suppliers, and how it would impact the suppliers if Pfizer was able to come up with their own machinery and drugs. Just to recap, Pfizer is an oligopoly that is currently one of the largest pharmaceutical companies in the world. The opportunity is here. Well, in 2021, Pfizer was ranked one of the largest pharmaceutical companies in the world, and they can definitely make changes in prices and disturb the industry. And Pfizer can operate as its own supplier. That is a recommendation that we came up with, and it would definitely help them out in the long term. Now, moving on with the internal analysis, I ended up using a source coming from Zachary Edwards. He talked about the VRIO analysis of Pfizer. I gave this a B-. The bottom line grade was a B- for this. Overview of Pfizer's strategy. Most valuable resources are Pfizer's ability to patent products. Also, Pfizer's brand and financial resources it has made throughout its history. Company strategy is sustaining long-term competitive advantages by high-quality drugs, and financial resources and distribution network to continue leading their strengths list to keep them competitive. As for the VRIO key resources, evaluation, and visuals, the prose explains each aspect of the VRIO analysis accurately and in depth, and it offers improvements to provide competitive advantages. The cons, there is no visuals or graphs, once again to show backward or forward integration or internal analysis. And somewhere in the article it talked about patents as a disadvantage in the organization stage, which I completely disagree, because if Pfizer was trying to come up with patents and in the end of the patent trying to sell those patents for cheap, they can use those resources somewhere else, and those resources could be spent coming up with new products to be patented, so that would be a waste of time. Now, my analysis would be to add a visual that represents what is discussed, and based on the VRIO analysis, the financial resource and distribution network provided sustained competitive advantage. These resources have been acquired by the company through prolonged profits over the years. The financial resources are extremely important because new entrants and competitors would require similar profits for a long period of time to accumulate these amounts of financial resources. Also, these resources are used strategically to invest in the right places, making the use of opportunities and combating threats. Pfizer should also expand the patented products network as they keep inventing new products daily, and Pfizer should accommodate the backward and forward integration in their value chain, as it will benefit their competitive advantage in the future. Just to recap, Pfizer's strategy is to attain long-term competitive advantages by creating high-quality products. The financial resources and distribution network provide sustained competitive advantage. Patents too, definitely with the patents. I would recommend Pfizer to continue expanding their manufacturing sites to increase production in each country. This would be the best opportunity for them to become the largest player in the pharmaceutical industry, to retain that pharmaceutical industry's crown. Some recommendations based on Pfizer's performance. Pfizer should purchase more manufacturing and distribution sites worldwide to increase the production of vaccines and drugs. Opening manufacturing and distribution sites worldwide will enable more people to receive drugs and vaccines quicker. Plus, you have to keep in mind different countries is a different target market. So if you have a different manufacturing site overseas, they have different diseases, and they can take care of those diseases down there, focus on those types of diseases, where here in America we will have different diseases to focus on. Produce more patented products on the market to differentiate themselves from the current competition is also a must. Pfizer's international strategy. What Pfizer is doing well is they're expanding its brand by acquiring smaller companies. They actually had an acquisition of Arena Pharmaceuticals last year. It was a clinical stage company developing innovative potential therapies for treatments of several immunoinflammatory diseases, and that was something that Pfizer struggled with. So now they could be experts in that by acquiring that company. And what Pfizer could do to improve is they are lacking in production centers globally, so they can definitely open up more manufacturing companies in different countries. And that was my company analysis. Thank you.